The November fog rolled in from the Thames, as though someone had steeped the entire city in a smoky lapsang. Lamps guttered outside Camden Town Station, and in their half-throttled glow, the sign for Somnus Leaves, bespoke dream teas, appeared and disappeared, as changeable as the boundary between waking and sleep. Few Londoners noticed the narrow stair that led down to the cellar shop. Fewer still guessed its proprietor could invite them to stroll deserts, scale citadels, or revisit a lost first kiss, all by measuring leaves on a brass scale older than the counting of seconds. Theodore Amwell Thoe, to friends he did not yet have, was a sommelier of slumber. He believed every emotion possessed a scent, every memory a flavor, and that to combine them was to orchestrate nocturnal theater. Even so, he had never brewed a cup that moved his own guarded heart. He was weighing shards of silvery Bymuden for a patron who yearned to speak with her late grandmother one last time, when the bell over the door rang a second time that afternoon. The newcomer did not hang back amid the rows of Villet jars, but strode straight to the oak counter, notebook already open, pen uncapped. Wind-reddened cheeks, sensible boots, a navy pea coat smelled of autumn rain. "Dr. Callista Hart," she announced, as if greeting a lecture hall. "I rang yesterday about controlled lucid dreaming." Theo inclined his head. Conversation mixed with steam ribboned around them. The first patron cradled her porcelain cup, eyes already glossy with anticipated reunion. "Give me a moment, doctor," he murmured. He tapped the Bymuden into parchment paper, added 3 jasmine pearls for gentle recall, and a single thread of saffron to anchor the vision. He sealed the packet with lavender wax, pressed it into the woman's palm, and whispered instructions about water temperature, breathing cadence, and the precise moment before sleep to sip. She left with gratitude trembling in her throat. Only then did Theo turn to Dr. Hart. "What flavor of night are you chasing?" She offered a quick, brilliant grin. "Agency," she said. "I run a sleep laboratory at King's College. Subjects achieve lucidity maybe once a month, and even then they drift. Your reputation suggests you can reduce drift." She flicked the notebook toward him. Scribbles of EEG readouts, REM durations, and phrases like theta bridge stable punctuated the margins. "If your tea can reliably precipitate lucid episodes, we could accelerate therapeutic protocols for PTSD, chronic grief, you name it." Theo wiped stray leaves from the counter. "Useful but clinical," he said softly. "Dreams aren't simply canvases to be painted on command. Dreams are stories the brain tells itself," she countered. "If we can learn the language, we can revise the plot." The grin softened. "Forgive me, Mr. Amwell. I respect the art. I also respect data. I think we might help each other." He studied her. Beneath brisk professionalism glimmered sleepless curiosity, equal portions caffeine and starlight. "All right," he said. "Let's start with a simple walk along the shore, lucid from the first step. If the tides answer to you, we'll talk further." From a jar labeled Mare Somniorum, he lifted flecks of sea-green sencha, married with dried strips of wild kelp, chips of Cornish salt, and the palest sliver of dried persimmon. So the dreamer remembers sweetness at the horizon. Callista sniffed, eyes widening at the mingled brine and fruit. She drank at a small wooden table, while Theo tidied the shop. An hour later, she reclined in a second-hand leather chair in the back room, electrodes gently pasted along her temples to log her first trial on a portable unit. Theo dimmed the lights and struck a match to a beeswax candle, scented faintly of cedar. "Count breaths down from 100, he said. "At 11 you will feel the wave." He waited beside the monitor while her chest settled into tidal rhythm. Spindles blossomed on the screen. At breath 11 her eyelids flitted. A satisfied hush fell, broken only by the candle's whisper. After 30 minutes her lashes stilled. 5 more and she woke, unglued the electrodes, and sat up, laughing like someone who had stumbled upon childhood again. "It worked," she said. "I knew I was dreaming the entire time." I bent down, scooped water, let it slip between my fingers. I turned the clouds pink. I wrote my name across the sky. She pressed shaking fingers to her mouth. Better attention than any galantamine or TDCS patch. Theo felt a reluctant warm pride. Mare somniorum is forgiving, he replied. It teaches first-time sailors. But each blend answers its own law. Ask for too much and you may rouse storms. Callista gathered her gear. My funding board will drool, but I want more than grants. I want to understand the recipe of feelings. She tapped the empty cup. What combination makes compassion? What tastes like longing? He hesitated. The question was impossible, reckless, and, to his surprise, welcome. Return tomorrow at dusk, he said. Bring no instruments. Bring a story instead. The following evening, London dripped with rain, sharp as needles. Callista arrived soaked, hair coiled against her collar. She set a cloth-bound journal on the counter. My story, she said. 3 years ago, my partner died. Aneurysm, no warning. Since then, I've chased lucid dreaming to say goodbye properly. But every time I find them in dreams, I freeze. I can't cross the room. Her breath quavered. I need a tea that allows affection without pain. Theo's fingers curled around the journal's edge. For years he had crafted teas for others, but never dared attempt tenderness himself. Affection is volatile, he warned. Too much rose and you drown in nostalgia. Not enough, and it tastes like cardboard. Additionally, your brain will guard grief like a loyal dog. Nevertheless, she said, let me taste the flavor of affection, even if it's unripe. That night, after closing, Theo prowled shelves under a lone bulb. He unscrewed jars, letting hints of cinnamon, orchid, osmanthus, cacao, and ancient pu'er ghost across his senses. He brewed tiny sampler cups, discarding more than he finished. Memories surfaced, his mother humming over chamomile. The afternoon a teenage boy pressed a peppermint sweet to Theo's tongue and kissed him behind the Tate Modern. The ache when that boy emigrated without goodbye. Each memory flavored the next trial. By dawn, a slender vial of petals, shavings, and pearls stood on the scale. He called it amaranthine affection, though he spoke the name to no one, lest naming break the spell. Callista arrived with dawn. You haven't slept, she observed. Neither have you, doctor. They prepared the infusion together, each movement mirrored. Water heated to precisely 84 degrees, poured clockwise into an earthen kyosu. Steam rose, carrying notes of stone fruit, almond, and the faint electricity before thunder. They sipped simultaneously, no electrodes this time. They reclined in parallel chairs, eyes closed, hands resting on blanket folds. Theo felt the edge of dreaming form like a dewdrop. He stood in a garden at twilight where every flower had a familiar face. Some were friends he missed, some strangers he feared he had hurt, some versions of himself, aged alternate years. When he touched a blossom, it whispered an untold kindness he had nearly forgotten. Colors blurred like chalk in rain, yet nothing bled into sorrow. Warmth filled him as steadily as water rises behind a dam. He woke, tears on his cheeks that were neither despair nor joy, but an intermediate ripple he did not recognize. Callista was already sitting upright, cheeks equally wet. Well? He asked, unable to mask tremor. She blew out a breath. At first my partner stood across the meadow. I tried to run, but couldn't move. And they smiled, and the field itself carried me forward. We sat, and I said everything I'd rehearsed in therapy. They answered them. We simply drank tea together. Her lips curved. I could taste it there, too. Almond skin, peach stone, but also something salt as forgiveness. She swallowed. Whatever you did, Theo, you gave shape to affection without the hook. Exhaustion folded over them. He locked the shop and they stumbled to a nearby cafe for greasy eggs and the clatter of ordinary life to ground them. Between mouthfuls, Callista spoke of potential clinical trials. Soldiers with survivor's guilt, parents mourning miscarriages. Theo nodded, yet a private apprehension twined through his ribs. He had witnessed customers abuse his tea-seeking endless revenge dreams. voyeuristic fantasies, nights spent looping the same triumph until waking life paled. Affection might be corrupted even faster. Any protocol must include safeguards, he insisted. Dosage limits, psychological screening, mandatory integration sessions. To satisfy the ethics board, she agreed. And because we're not selling escapism, we're lending courage. She nudged his teacup. We start small, 10 volunteers, double blind, alternating the affection blend with a placebo. Placebo? He raised a brow. She chuckled. Chamomile with food coloring. Most people can't tell once blood caffeine crashes. Within a fortnight, the back room became a pocket laboratory. Foam mattresses lined the floor beneath a hodgepodge of wires and sticky pads. Candles were replaced by HEPA filters bribed to breathe quietly. Volunteers, ranging from a stammering poet to an ex-Royal Marine, signed consent forms thick as novellas. Some wore hope like a badge, others skepticism like armor. The first nights bloomed with promise. EEG graphs confirmed rapid entry into REM and heightened gamma activity associated with lucidity. Subjects reported dialogues with deceased relatives, reconciliations with estranged lovers, even self-forgiveness after childhood mistakes. Word spread. Journalists sniffed. A pharmaceutical conglomerate offered to purchase the formula and synthesize it into capsules. Theo balked. A pill divorces taste from meaning. Flavor is half the path. Callista agreed, yet temptation licked the edges. Labs, funding, global distribution. Over curry in Brick Lane, they argued until the naan cooled. Imagine, she said, tapping the table, low-cost access for trauma victims in remote regions. Imagine, he countered, mass addiction to counterfeit comfort. Their voices fell, but tension remained. Delicate as the meniscus atop black tea, days passed. The debate became undertow to every conversation. One night, volunteer number 9, Harriet, a stoic accountant, emerged from sleep, pale as unglazed porcelain. She shook violently. Too much, she gasped. He loved me too much. I couldn't breathe. Theo's stomach dropped. He tasted the blend residue in Harriet's cup, realized he had mismeasured osmanthus by a gram. Such a small slip tipped affection into suffocation. It took hours, herbal detox, and gentle grounding for Harriet to steady. She still signed the release praising the study, but the error haunted Theo. Callista found him afterward in the storeroom, staring at shelves. You've carried this alone, she said, but crafts become safer when shared. He nearly replied with deflection, yet Harriet's trembling lingered in memory. Then learn, he said. He placed a spoon in her hand. From that evening on, they blended side by side. Theo taught her how cinnamon suggests security but can scorch if paired with ginseng. How rose marries nostalgia yet turns cloying without citrus to cut. Callista contributed biochemical insights. How L-theanine smoothed caffeine peaks. How trace magnesium eased muscle microspasms that could jolt a sleeper awake. They documented every gram, every swirl of the wrist. Their arguments cooled to collaborative murmurs. Sometimes they worked until dawn, shoulders brushing. Silence punctuated by soft laughter at shared memories triggered by a whiff of cardamom. Theo caught himself noticing Callista's voice first thing each morning, the slight rasp from too many late nights. He began adding golden chrysanthemum to her personal mugs. It eased throat inflammation, she noticed, and in return left spiral-bound pages of annotated dreams on his counter, as though trusting him with her unconscious. One April twilight after closing shop, they brewed amaranthine affection for themselves again. No study, no graphs, only curiosity. As steam rose, Theo asked, do you ever dream of futures rather than pasts? Callista traced condensation on the cup. I try, but the data of tomorrow hasn't been collected. She looked up. Perhaps tonight. They drank. The room folded away. Theo found himself on the upper deck of a bus rolling across Waterloo Bridge beneath vermilion sunset. Callista sat beside him. Both were older, silver at his temples, laugh lines fanning her eyes, yet ease pulsed between them like a shared pulse. They disembarked, walked into a community clinic whose sign read Somnus Foundation. Inside, people brewed tea for one another, teaching, healing, laughing. He and Callista supervised, occasionally stepping aside to sip from a single thermos. He woke with tears again, but these belonged wholly to joy. Callista opened her eyes seconds later. Without speaking, they compared scenes and discovered their dreams matched in every major detail. Shared lucidity, she whispered. I've chased that for a decade. Tea is a medium, he said, voice rough, but so is trust. The remainder of the year unfolded in widening circles. They refined dosing, published cautiously, rejected the capsule buyout in favor of open source workshops. BBC Radio invited them. Nighttime callers wept gratitude on air. Harriet returned as a tutor, teaching new clients how to anchor emotions. Regulations stiffened, tabloids sensationalized love tea cult, yet the work persisted. One early summer night, thunderstorms rattled London. Power flickered in the cellar. Fat raindrops drummed the pavement like impatient fingers. Callista lit hurricane lanterns. Theo stoked a coal brazier for the kettle. They brewed a humble Taiwanese oolong neither had tasted before, rich with notes of baked plum and honey. Lightning flashed, outlining her profile. Theo realized affection no longer needed a formula. He had steeped into the ordinary. He set his cup down. Callista. He rarely used her first name. It felt both fragile and indestructible. She met his gaze. I've spent years crafting flavors to give other people courage. He swallowed. Tea for myself often tasted of retreat. Tonight I would like a dream unscripted. No blends, no guides, merely the possibility of you meeting me there. Rain thrummed like applause. She reached across the little table and rested her hand over his. Theo lab notebooks are full of margins waiting for stories. Let's write one together, in waking and in sleep. In the hush that followed, electricity failed entirely. Only lantern glow remained. Outside, Camden Town shimmered under rain, a city steeped, brewing its own miles-wide dream. Inside, two alchemists of night lifted playing cups to their lips, discovering that affection had become an everyday flavor, strong enough to guide them whether their eyes were open or closed.